The story of Edinburgh does not begin in the streets or the markets. It begins high above them. Edinburgh Castle stands on an ancient volcanic rock, watching over the city for more than 1,000 years. This was never just a fortress. It was a symbol of control. From here, rulers could see the streets below, the smoke rising from homes, and the routes leading toward the sea. In the 1700s, the castle was no longer the most important military stronghold in Britain, but its presence still shaped everyday life. It reminded people who held power and where authority came from. Edinburgh did not grow around a port or a river like many other cities. It grew around defense and survival. From this height, the city looks compressed, almost trapped by its own geography. Narrow streets, crowded rooftops, and very little open space. And as we leave the castle behind and begin to descend, we move away from symbols of power and straight into the living body of the city. As we descend from the castle, we step onto the Royal Mile, the backbone of Edinburgh. This long, narrow street connected power at the top with daily life below. After the Act of Union in 1707, Edinburgh lost its own parliament, but it did not lose importance. It became the legal and religious heart of Scotland. The Royal Mile filled with lawyers in powdered wigs, ministers, officials, merchants, and city guards in red uniforms. Carts rolled past, horses moved through crowds, newspaper sellers shouted the latest news. Everything flowed along this single line. Edinburgh could not expand outward, so it stretched along this street instead. The Royal Mile pulled everyone into the same space. It was loud, crowded, and constantly moving. But step just a few meters away from it, and the city changes completely. The noise fades, the light disappears, and Edinburgh begins to feel darker, tighter, and far more dangerous. Leaving the Royal Mile, we step into the Old Town, one of the most densely populated places in Europe. Edinburgh did not expand outward, it grew upward. Tall residential buildings, known as lands, rose 10 or even 12 stories high. Inside a single building, as many as 300 people lived stacked on top of each other. Rich and poor shared the same walls, but not the same lives. The wealthy lived closer to the ground, near shops and fresh air. The poor climbed higher, into smaller rooms with weaker floors, colder winds, and almost no light. Here, social hierarchy was measured by stairs. Every step upward meant less comfort and less safety. Smoke filled the narrow streets below. Smells lingered. Disease spread quickly. The city pressed in from every direction. Life in the Old Town was not designed for comfort. It was designed for survival. And the deeper you moved into it, the more intense that pressure became. Yet even this was not the deepest layer of the city. Beneath the streets themselves, Edinburgh hid another world. Beyond the main streets, Edinburgh turned into a maze. Narrow passages, known as Wynds, and closes cut between buildings and dropped steeply downward. Many were private. Some barely allowed 2 people to pass. Over time, new buildings were constructed directly on top of older streets. Lower levels were sealed off and turned into underground spaces where people continued to live and work. Oil lamps provided weak light. Above, the sky appeared only as a thin strip between towering walls of stone. It was easy to get lost here. easy to disappear. These spaces added a psychological weight to the city. Edinburgh felt alive, almost watching those who walked through it. And nowhere was this pressure more obvious than in the way the city handled its waste. Because in a place this crowded, even filth had to follow rules. Edinburgh in the 1700s had no modern sewer system. Waste was thrown directly from windows into the streets below. But this chaos followed rules. Every night at 10 o'clock, residents leaned out of their windows and shouted a warning. Gardyloo! The word came from French, meaning, watch out for the water. After the warning, buckets were emptied from heights of 6, 7, sometimes 8 floors. If a passerby heard the shout, they were expected to respond quickly by yelling back, "Hold your hand!" a plea to wait just a moment. Miss the exchange, and you paid the price. Filth could land beside silk stockings, powdered wigs, and expensive coats. The contrast was brutal. Dirt and elegance existed side by side. Even waste disposal had etiquette. Even chaos had order. But the smells, the danger, and the constant risk of illness never disappeared. This daily ritual defined life in the city and reminded everyone that survival in Edinburgh depended on awareness, timing, and luck. Grassmarket was one of the harshest places in Edinburgh. This was where animals were sold, meat was traded, and daily commerce took place. But it was also the site of public executions. Gallows stood openly in the square. Crowds gathered not only to shop, but to watch people die. Children played nearby. Vendors shouted prices. Fear and economy shared the same ground. Executions were meant to send a message. Law and authority were visible and unavoidable. Grassmarket showed the city without illusions. Life here was brutal, direct, and honest. Yet, strangely, this environment also produced something extraordinary. Because while the streets were dirty and violent, the minds of Edinburgh were becoming sharper than anywhere else in Europe. Against all odds, Edinburgh became one of the most important intellectual centers in Europe. In the 1700s, it earned the name the Athens of the North. Not because of its buildings, but because of its minds. Philosophers, economists, scientists, and writers gathered in taverns and clubs, not palaces. Ideas were debated late into the night, surrounded by pipe smoke and noise. In 1768, the city began printing the Encyclopedia Britannica, a project that aimed to collect all human knowledge. Intelligence became currency. Reason mattered more than birth or title. One visitor described Edinburgh as a hotbed of genius. That visitor was Benjamin Franklin. He saw something rare here, a city drowning in dirt, yet overflowing with ideas. This contrast defined Edinburgh, a place where cramped streets produced expansive thinking. But ideas alone were not enough. The city itself was suffocating, and sooner or later, it had to change. Between the old town and the future lay Loch. It was essentially a massive open sewer. Waste flowed into it for decades. In the mid-1700s, a decision was made to drain it. This changed everything. Bridges were built. The new town was planned. Wide streets, symmetry, and open space replaced chaos. The wealthy and educated moved out of the old town. Architecture became a statement of values. Order replaced compression. Light replaced darkness. Edinburgh was healing itself through design. This was not just construction. It was a philosophical shift. The city chose reason over survival. By the end of the 18th century, Edinburgh had become two cities in one. The old town remained dark, crowded, and vertical. The new town stood open, ordered, and bright. The castle still watched over both. Smoke still rose from chimneys. But now chaos and reason existed side by side. Edinburgh did not erase its past. It grew beyond it. This is a story about how ideas reshape space, about how thinking can transform a city. Edinburgh is not just a place, it is a choice, and that choice still defines it today.